Jim, I got this really great order comment. Somebody was ordering a book, and she was saying, she's also in level 1, her and her husband, and she was saying how great the tools are for their relationship. She says they don't fight anymore, they have good conversations, they're happy together. It was great.
How come you get all the good emails?
What do you mean?
No, it's an interesting experience watching couples basically take all this work, because one of the things that happens in relationship is I like you because you're like me. That doesn't mean you're wonderful and I'm wonderful. Sometimes it means your father yelled at you and my father yelled at me, and we have commonality. We understand each other. Mm-hmm. But you're right. Most of the time we get these, especially over the whole body of the work. Mm-hmm. You know, we get emails from people that, especially when it's couples working together. So they basically, mostly great things happen, but sometimes you begin to realize we're no longer a match.
Yeah.
And it's like, I like you, but we're not a match. Mm-hmm. And as I begin to get certain about myself, own myself, you own yourself, in that case, sometimes it's like the tools allow them to say, and it's happened on a number of occasions where I like you, you're my friend, but we don't match. But the overwhelming experience we've had is people grow together.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because their stuff comes up, so they push against each other, and there's moments of, you know, I don't know why I'm in this relationship with you. And then they use the tools, they kind of clear their patterns in their pictures, and it comes back together. And most of the time, it's a very nice.
Well, the purpose of choosing who you've chosen is specifically so that they can push your buttons. Now, you don't do that consciously, but the greater spiritual part of you chooses this person so that you can work on yourself.
Yeah.
And so many times they push your buttons like crazy, and not having the tools, you can't leverage that opportunity. But having the tools, you can leverage the button pushing for yourself.
Yeah, there has been circumstances where a person's taking the work and they're growing and they're growing and they're growing, and the relationship gets challenging. There have been lots of other experiences where a person's growing and growing, and all of a sudden, because this person is no longer argumentative, no longer judgmental, no longer jumping in the other person's space, this person all of a sudden has a lot of room to grow also. Mm-hmm. And it's like, wow, I'm kind of liking the you that you're becoming. And we've watched, you know, hundreds of relationships basically improve in that process.
And then there's the other side of the coin, where one person is taking the classes and they're growing and growing and being able to be certain and senior and stay in their own space and not react. And that their partner is not on a spiritual journey,
right.
Doesn't have the tools, and there could be a level of confusion of, who are you? This is not who I married, the person who's
sure.
growing. Or there's an anger, or another thing that we've noticed is that there's a period of time where the person who doesn't have tools gets louder.
Sure. So there's really kind of three things we've noticed
Mm-hmm.
when people take this work. It's you first really begin to lose your friends. And if you think about that, these are people I hang out with just by circumstance, and I really may have chosen them, I may not have chosen them, but by familiarity and circumstance, I'm in agreement. And I've got nothing, I don't know anything else. I'd like to do something else, but I don't have anything else to do. And then you start taking this work, which gives you a great amount of permission to like yourself, know yourself, permission to be yourself. And that's when all of a sudden you start to grow and people fall away. So that's one piece. The other piece is you start to grow and you begin to have people, family members, a lot of times particularly, what really is going on? It's like, I see you, I want what you have, mm-hmm. but I can't unravel my life to to make the adjustment. I'm afraid to make the adjustment. So the easier choice is to kill you off, argue with you, invalidate you, push against you, beat you up, insult you, and that happens. But as you move through this, and then in that case, the person either gives up, which seldomly happens, gives up and settles back into a place where they're actually even more unhappy because I've had a truth and now I'm living the old truth. So that begins to be uncomfortable. I've seen that. We've seen that a couple of times.
A few times, yeah.
But mostly what happens is in that circumstance, the person figures out how to either not argue with, not bring up politics, or religion or something that pushes buttons. And then they begin to move away from aspects of family even in those situations because they figure it out. But the one that's always the most fascinating is the one where people begin to watch you and they argue and they don't like you and they're pushing against and you're the boss or you're the employee, and all of a sudden you begin to be who you are.
You begin to shine.
And they no longer have a place to throw rocks, and more often than not they basically say, can I rub up against you? I don't really want anything, but
I want to be in your presence.
I want what you've got.
Yeah, you've changed and I like how you've changed. How did you do that?
Yeah. So that happens quite often in this growth. But the thing you really want to understand is relationship is the toughest experience you have on the planet. It is absolutely. It's a relationship with the tree, relationship with the road, relationship with community, relationship with family, husbands, wives, mothers, fathers. It is the game of this planet. And learning how to be masterful yourself.
Well, and understanding that relationship is so difficult, and being conscious enough to say, okay, my button got pushed. I want to leverage this for me, for my growth. And so using the tools, okay, where in my space do I hold jealousy or whatever came up?
Yeah.
And for myself, was married twice before you, and they were both abusive. But I was pretty unconscious back then. I didn't have tools. And so I wasn't able to leverage the situation until after I'd left, and I could look back in retrospect and I realized I chose those situations so that I can own my own space. I can be strong. I can say no. I can say this doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
So it worked out, but had I had the tools when I was there, I would have evolved faster, or I would have understood quicker.
Yeah. The circumstance that I watch where people accelerate, they really blossom, they really become very, very aware of themselves and what they're doing, is when they understand that that person I don't like, that person who pushes my buttons, is simply my gift.
Yes.
They're my mirror. And so if I'm feeling uncomfortable about something they said, there is a little catcher's mitt inside me that says, I get irritated when you throw that rock. But that is really the blessing in a lot of ways. If I can thank them, I get irritated, but if I can figure out how to clear that pattern out of my space, one, they stop throwing rocks, and two, they generally disappear from my reality a lot sooner than otherwise. Not that they're bad or good, they no longer have a purpose. And so understanding the world is your mirror and navigate it from the standpoint of thank you for being a jerk and recognizing, okay, the rock is in my backpack, not in their backpack.
And thank them.
And thank them, yeah. So it's a nice opportunity many, many times.
Of course, you don't push any of my buttons.
No.
And I never push any of yours.
No, I don't have any buttons any longer. But you didn't wash the dishes last night. So anyway, it's a piece of information that think about, because particularly right now as this whole transition is becoming very edgy, there are going to be people who are going to be edgy in your space. And so not having the catcher's mitt is going to allow your relationships with navigating the world to be much cleaner.
Yes, easier.